Hey guys, what's up? I'm here at the lovely waterfront here in sunny Brindisi, Italy. It's a really awesome day, and I don't have class at the moment, so I've got a bit of free time to kill. So I'm going to talk a little bit today about some of the differences that I have encountered personally between living and working in Spain and living here in Italy. So remember, this is just my personal experiences and my observations that I've encountered, not a general thing on the whole. So I don't want anyone getting offended or out like that, making generalizations. Oh, we did it like this, or we're not like that. So this is just my experiences. So for a bit of context, I taught for a little while in Cordoba, which is in the Andalusia region of southern Spain. And now I've recently moved here to Brindisi, which is in southern Italy in the Puglia region. So yeah, I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the differences that I've encountered between living in both countries. So obviously they are different countries to each other. Spain and Italy are not the same place, but they do have a lot of similarities culturally and historically. So on the face of things, generally, observations is the cities in Spain are more modern and more developed, and they seem a bit more organized than the ones that are in Italy. Public transport is quite a bit better over there from what I encountered. Things are a bit more organized. The buses tend to be a bit more on time, and there aren't as many strikes over in Spain as there are here in Italy. Like in Italy, there always seems to be strikes and protests and that kind of thing going on. Whereas I didn't really encounter that quite so much in Spain. So Spanish cities are more modern. Italian cities are kind of older. They are a bit more rustic in comparison. They appear a bit more disorganized and a bit more chaotic on the surface. Italians kind of drive nowhere near as good as the Spanish do. Spanish people are more likely to kind of stop for you to cross the street and that kind of thing. Whereas in Italy, you pretty much have to just walk out into the road. Otherwise, you'll be waiting there all day for someone to kind of let you go. So yeah, however, cities in Italy, they are older and they're more historic, but they are definitely more beautiful in my opinion. Cities, in terms of aesthetically pleasing, Barcelona and Madrid and those kind of places, they're cool, but they are nowhere close to the beauty of Rome and Venice and Florence and those kind of places. Italian cities definitely do have this charm to them that I just didn't really see when I was in Spain. So yeah, Spain is a bit more modern and organized, but Italy is definitely more charming, I think. Economically, Italy is actually better off than Spain is. Spain both countries got absolutely hammered by the recession, but Spain seemed to get it quite a bit worse than Italy did. However, that does vary based on where you are in the country, because Italy has a very big divide economically between the north and south. So while Andalusia and Extremadura are poorer than Madrid and Catalonia, it doesn't quite compare to the differences economically between northern and southern Italy, whereas somewhere like Campania is way, way, way poorer than somewhere like Milan. So Italy is better off economically, but that does depend on where you are in Italy, whereas Spain seems to be a bit more kind of equal all round. People-wise, generally, Spaniards are a bit more reserved than Italians. They tend to be kind of more polite, a bit kind of better mannered, a bit more introverted as well. They're not as quiet and loud and kind of flamboyant and animated as the Italians are. However, they're also not nearly as friendly. I find that Italian people are a lot more friendlier than the Spanish are. They're a lot more outgoing. They're a lot more helpful as well. Excuse me. I've also found that in Italy, more people are kind of open to speaking English. So even here in Brindisi, which is not a very big city, I found people in restaurants and just out and about in town who are open to speaking English and kind of have a better grasp of English. Whereas when I was in Spain, they weren't nearly as good at the English language, even in places like government offices, post offices, and places where you would expect foreigners to kind of go to. They didn't seem to have nearly as good English as Italians do. However, like, that is just my experience. Obviously, Spain has got a lot more British expats than Italy does. So if you're going to a place in Spain that has a lot of expats or a lot of tourists, then you're going to find people who do speak English. But where I was in Spain, there wasn't so many expats. Also, obviously, because Spanish is a world spoken language, whereas Italian isn't. So Italians have probably got a bit more of a need to learn English than Spaniards do. So yeah, that's another thing that I've found between the people. So yeah, Italians are a bit more animated, a bit more eccentric, a bit more kind of louder than the Spanish are. And the Spanish are kind of a bit more reserved, introverted, but also more polite. However, Spain is famous for its partying, so Spaniards definitely know how to party when the time comes for it. So if you're a person who wants to go out partying and that kind of thing, then Spain is probably going to be more for you, whereas Italians don't really party nearly as much. Both countries do take siestas in the middle of the daytime, so whether you're in Spain or whether you're in Italy, if you're going to be walking around town anytime between 1 o'clock and like 4 o'clock, you're going to find both countries quite deserted. Not so much in the bigger cities, but in the more provincial areas especially. Like, however, in Italy they do tend to close more earlier than they do in Spain. So like here in Brindisi, most businesses are shut by 8:30 or 9 o'clock, other than like restaurants which will maybe stay open till 11 or something, but everywhere seems to be kind of buttoned up tight by midnight, whereas in Spain people are kind of getting ready for a night out at 11 o'clock and they can still be on the go at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Excuse me. Yeah, so they both do have kind of similar business hours to each other, but Italy does tend to kind of close up earlier than Spain does. Both countries are quite religious. However, Italy seems to be a bit more religious than Spain is. Spain tends to kind of have more atheists and non-religious people I encountered in comparison to Italy. However, I am in the south of Italy, which is definitely the more traditional region of the country compared to the north. So languages, obviously, Spaniards speak Spanish and Italians speak Italian. Fucking hell, get me words mixed up there. Yeah, so in Spain you're going to hear Spanish, in Italy you're going to hear Italian, that's the obvious thing. However, there are also regional dialects and other languages spoken out and about in both countries. So in northern Spain you're probably going to encounter Basque in some of the northern coastal regions, which is a completely different language, as well as Catalan. Catalan in the area around Barcelona and Catalonia, and Galician in Galicia. So it's not just generic Castilian Spanish, but you're also going to encounter those dialects as well. And likewise in Italy, as well as general Italian, which is in most of the country, you're going to find French being spoken in the Val d'Aosta, which borders France, German on the signposts and being spoken in South Tyrol and the borders with Austria and Switzerland, that kind of area, as well as like Arabic in parts of Palermo and Sicily, because they're a lot more closer to Africa. So in terms of languages, both countries have their diversities, but Italians I found generally do seem a bit more open to speaking English than Spanish are. Weather-wise, both countries generally have Mediterranean climates. However, Spain is quite a bit hotter in the summertime than Italy is. It's drier as well, maybe because it's a landmass that's bigger than Italy, like the Iberian Peninsula is quite a bit larger and more continental than the Italian peninsula. So Spain tends to have hotter summers than Italy does. Also, Spain is quite a bit further south than Italy in terms of its latitude. So like Rome is in central Italy, but latitudinally it's the same as like Barcelona, which is in northern Spain. So Spain does have quite uniformly hotter summers than Italy. Italy is also a bit more humid than Spain. They do get some quite gnarly thunderstorms especially in the summertime in the northern regions of the country. However, both countries can get really, really hot in the summer. Don't get me wrong, like Italy can also get very hot summers, especially in the south. Winter is probably quite a bit colder in Italy, just because Italy is further north, and also because of the Alps, because Italy borders Switzerland and Austria and those kind of places. So Italy is quite a bit colder than Spain is in the winter. Food-wise, Spain is famous for its paella, its tapas, its sangria, its salmorejo, and its gazpacho. But for me personally, like, excuse me. For me personally, I definitely do prefer the food in Italy. It is more famous worldwide than Spanish food is. I mean, everybody knows what Italian food is, and for my taste personally, I do prefer the taste of it. Of Italian food. I did have some very good food in Spain, but in the town where I was living in, it was one of the fairly smaller towns in Spain, and it didn't really seem to have quite as much like variety. Like, yeah, there was some kebab shops and there was an Indian place, but on the whole, most of the food I found out and about was like Spanish tapas, and it was also the same stuff that was served in every kind of tapas bar that I went to. Obviously Madrid, Barcelona and bigger cities are going to have a bit more variety in their cuisine, and also like that's kind of the same here in Brindisi. Like, Brindisi doesn't really have as much stuff other than Italian food. However, Brindisi is also a smaller town, but for my tastes personally, I do way prefer Italian food to Spanish food, so I'm perfectly fine with having Italian food every day here. Whereas in Italy, I did tend to get quite bored of tapas quite easily and quite early on. So yeah, that is just like, remember, this is just my general observations, my experiences in both countries, so take it as a pinch of salt, but also just as a little bit of a guide. So I don't want anyone getting offended by any stereotypes or any of that kind of thing. So if anyone has any questions about life in Spain or in Italy, feel free to hit me up in my comments section or in my emails. So that's jm.davis, D-A-V-I-E-S, jm.davis_89 at hotmail.co.uk. Hit me up if you have any questions. Other than that, ciao for now.